I can't express how excited I am to have Carol back with us, and Carol has her own company now.
I do.
And it's called Tailor Made
Consulting.
There we go. I knew I'd forget something. But she does a phenomenal job. She's probably one of our most requested speakers that we have for our speaker series. And she does a fantastic job because she can relate. She's going to tell you things that you're going to actually be able to take home and implement, whether it's tomorrow morning in your classrooms, whether it's with your own children at home, or whether you can help a parent or a neighbor out. So I appreciate everybody being here. I know she's also going to take lots of questions if you have that. And if you can see, we have a new system to record things, which is great. So hopefully we'll get this up on YouTube. That's a big hope, but it's going to be there hopefully soon. So if you have any questions, please ask. And without any further ado, it's all yours.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. We'll see if you do that at the end, right? Yeah, that's right. That's the real key. So I will tell you that I am going to give you some things, certainly to take with you, but some kind of keywords, key steps, key phrases. And I left home. I didn't leave home today, actually. I left from Mount Vernon at the hospital with my mom. And I don't have my handouts. And so you get to do the work tonight. I apologize for that. So if you have a piece of paper, if you have a phone, there are some things that you may want to write down because I'm going to give you a couple of lists of things, those kind of things. And I know some people like to make sure they get all of that down. And I do. I apologize for that. I can ship them to Lori. One of the things that I want to make sure is to say that I have a lot's changed since I saw Lori the last time. I changed jobs, my full-time job, and I started a company. In my full-time job, I now have the opportunity to learn tons of different information about learning science and about education and adult education and all those kinds of things, and I'm responsible to develop trainers. And so one of the things that I've been kind of playing with in my personal business is how can I make sure that not only during the training are people engaged and having a good time and learning all kinds of things, but what can I do after the training to sustain learning for you, to kind of transfer that learning back to home, transfer that learning beyond this room, and to give you, we have fancy words for things, right? Some spaced retrieval, that in that window of about 1 week to 2 weeks after you've learned something is really the prime time to be reminded about it. And so I want to try that tonight. If you're willing, and you do not have to, I'm going to ship around a piece of paper, and all you need to do, if you want an email from me, I will not use your email for any other purpose than this, I promise. But if you want an email from me as a reminder or a tip or some follow-up to this training tonight, you may put your name and email address on here, and I will ship you some things in about 2 weeks. Okay? So just a trial. If it flops, not a problem. If it's successful, sweet. I learned a little something, right? So I'm just going to start it over here. You may want to wait till at least 7:30 before you decide whether or not you want to put your email on there. And if you change your mind at the end, you can cross it off. That's fine. But I think it's one of those pieces that's really interesting to me in terms of the stuff that I'm going to throw at you tonight. Honestly, I hope, isn't incredibly new information, but is great reminders of some things that may have happened throughout your life that were really important to you and really successful, and for you to feel empowered to carry those things on to the next generation. And so I hope we just have some fun. I fully intend for this to be interactive, so please don't hesitate in the middle of a sentence. Raise your hand, that's fine. Let me know you have a question. Let me know you want to say something. Please feel free. You are not going to bother me at all. So when Lori called me, she said, you know, Carol, you've done this series before. I'd like for you to come back. What could you talk about? And I said, you know, based on what I'm seeing in my world, based on what I'm seeing in my neighborhood, based on what I'm seeing in the news, based on my experiences throughout my day, I believe we have to keep talking about resilience. Because all of us, if we walk this planet for very long, we're going to face adversity. Yes? Yeah. And when we face adversity, my hope is that we have the skills that we can cope with it and that we can persevere through it and remain healthy. And I think that's the piece for me that's been a little different as I've researched resilience, as I've talked about resilience, as I've written paper after paper and et cetera, on resilience. One of the things that I'm not okay with is that the general concept as a definition always talks about bouncing back. Now, I understand that theory is, like you toss something and it kind of rebounds, right? But I'm stuck on the whole concept of back. And I've decided I no longer want to go back to being anything. I really would like to keep moving forward. And so I kept wrestling with, so what is my definition of resilience? What do I think of when I think about resilience? And everything that I read and everything that I research, it really to me is about having skills to cope in the face of adversity and persevere through, right? In a healthy way. And I think that for me is the big key, because I've persevered through a lot of things in my life in some really unhealthy ways, right? I've eaten too much, I've spent too much, I've drank too much, I've done all kinds of things that were really not healthy, but I came out on the other side of it. I'd really like to be able to come out on the other side of it in a healthy way. And so that's really what I want to talk about tonight, is kind of how do we build kids, how do we build adults to be able to do that? And so I have to believe that every single person sitting in here has resilience. Because you didn't make it to the ages that you are and face the adversity that you faced and come here tonight in the face of whatever crazy traffic goes on in Columbus. Let's just start with that, right? You didn't make it to this point of your life without some resilience. But I don't know that we always stop and think about, how did we get that? And what is it really? Right? It's just because I will tell you that our society right now has this really, and it's not just right now, it's been for a very long time, has this mentality that is very much about rugged individualism and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yes? I can tell you that last fall, and it was roughly a little more than a year ago, when I sat in my living room and I could find no further purpose to live, I didn't have the strength within me for rugged individualism to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I needed something else. And I will tell you, I consider myself a pretty resilient human being. I consider myself to be a fairly skilled human being. I consider myself to be a relatively educated, semi-intelligent, able to function human being most days. And when life gets to that place, it doesn't matter how much education you have, how many skills you have, or how much rugged individualism you have. You're down, right? And you can be down for the count if you just depend on yourself. And so I've begun to challenge people wherever I go to say, it's not about self-care, it's not about rugged individualism, it's about community care. And it's about relationships. And it's about connectedness. And I will tell you that every social media outlet will tell you we are the most connected we have ever been. I agree. We are also the most isolated we have ever been in history. Right? We have people who don't talk to human beings all day long. They talk to screens, they type, they text, they send pictures, they do all those kinds of things, but they never talk to another human being all day long. And there is no greater place that I'm seeing that right now than in the elder community. Right? Because of the nature of my age, I end up spending a lot of time around people who are in elder care, who are in our senior citizen kind of range, and I'm seeing how many of them are so isolated. And then on the flip side of it, I look at our teenagers who are anxious, they're depressed, they're angry, they're scared, they're worked up. Why? Because they're isolated. Now, don't get me wrong, they're busy, they're running amok all kinds of hours of the day. They're doing all kinds of things. But but they're not truly connected. And as human beings, we were built for connection. We were built for relationship. So much so that I'm just going to throw out a goofy tidbit for you. There is actual proof that you can read something on your own that's interesting and you remember a little bit of it. But if somebody sends it to you via email, Facebook, some social media outlet, and it's a friend that gives it to you, you remember more of it. That's how designed for relationship we are, is that we value something that a friend gives us more than if we do it ourselves. Right? Knowing that, what does that look like in our world? So here's one of those moments where those of you who want to write, type, text, keep track of, here's the first list I'm going to give you. Because resilience is teachable. I love that part of it, right? It's teachable. Resilience isn't born in us. What's born in us is a will to survive. But that's not resilience, right? That's just survival. And so resilience actually has to be taught. And resilience, as I'm going to talk about it tonight, is actually 5 key skills. And I'm going to share those 5 key skills with you. Then we're going to talk about how do we build them. The 5 key skills of resilience that I like to talk about are sense of hope, having a sense of hope. Connectedness to community. Connectedness to community. Perseverance. Self-regulation. And all of a sudden, the 5th one has escaped me. Moments of success. Moments of success. Thank you. It's in there. Look at that. I did bring the handouts. Nice. Yay me. Yay me. Perseverance. Sense of hope. We got hope all of a sudden. Woo, thank you. And I can't even begin to tell you what just happened to my brain. It just went, zoop, done. I don't have it. I need a moment of success right now. All right, so when we think about those 5 key skills, I want to break those down just a little bit for you. Not only what does it mean, but how do we build it, right? So when we talk about a sense of hope, it really is that feeling, that belief. It's more than just a thought. It's a true belief in us that there is something bigger than us and that tomorrow or the future can be different. Notice I didn't say better. It'll be different. That we're not stuck. And I don't know about you, but I hate being stuck. I need to move. I got to make some sort of decision. I don't even like being stuck in traffic, much less emotionally. That was proof on 315 tonight. But when we think about, and when I say something bigger than us, you can take that as a spiritual connection. You can take that as simply, I am a part of something bigger even if I attend this school. I'm a part of something bigger in my neighborhood. I'm a part of something bigger in our state, right? In our nation. I'm a part of something bigger, but I matter in that, right? And that whatever it is that's going on around me can be different in the future. When we talk about connectedness to community, that's another one I like to kind of pull apart. When I talk about community, I don't mean Worthington, although that's part of it. Community is wherever we are, right? In some weird fashion, we have created a community here tonight because you're all hearing information that nobody else out there is hearing right now. And so we have created community because we have a shared experience here tonight. Community happens in a classroom. Community happens in a workplace. Right? Community happens in your neighborhood. It happens in your home. It happens in your churches. It happens on your sports teams. Yes? Yeah. I mean, I know who my go-to people are at work than when I want to laugh. My go-to people when I need a snack. Right? My go-to people when I want to do something goofy and play a prank on somebody else. I know who my people are at work. I also know who the people are in my community that I could go to and ask for, in my neighborhood, ask for a cup of sugar. I know who I could go to if I need to borrow a weed whacker. right? Like there is community around us. And if you don't know who those people are in your neighborhood, find out. Because what that tells me is you're not connected. I started to challenge myself and people around me to say, I want every person that I know to have at least 2 friends that they consider ice cream friends. And here's what I mean by that, is that person that on a Sunday afternoon when you got nothing better to do and you're just kind of sitting there and you go, dang, I'd really like some ice cream, but I don't want to go alone. Hey, you want to go get some ice cream? And they're like, yeah, let's go. And you go. And you don't have to have some big, deep conversation. You don't have to share all your woes of the world. You don't have to even have a long-term conversation. You're just going to go and have some ice cream. Right? Everybody needs those folks. And some of you are already looking at me like, holy crap, I don't have those people. That's how isolated we are. Right? That's how isolated we are. Do you have somebody in your neighborhood that you'd go ask for a cup of sugar? Nope, I'd just drive down to Walmart. I got it. And that's where we are. Right? That's the kind of stuff that's different. And so when I think about those kinds of things, I think about how do we build community wherever we are. There is a great book for those of you who are follow-up readers. I'll throw out the name of a book. It's called The Resilience Breakthrough. It's by Christian Moore. And in his book, he talks about sources of resilience. And they're fairly similar to the 5 skills that I just threw out, but one of the sources that he talks about that I just love is he says, resilience comes and we can tap into it when we know that somebody is counting on us and we can count on somebody else. And I don't know about you, but I can tell you that that's what got me out of bed last winter when I didn't want to live anymore. I still went to work every day. What got me out of bed was knowing there were people at work who were counting on me to get that copy done, to do that presentation, to lead that thing, to make sure that that phone call got made, to make sure that email got sent. Whatever that was, there was still something in me that felt like somebody was counting on me. And on Saturdays and Sundays, what got me up was my dog. Right? Who was counting on me to take her out to go to the bathroom, to feed her, to give her a treat. There was somebody, something that was counting on you. In those moments when we lose sight of that, when we lose that feeling of connection about that, it's much harder to have resilience. Right? So begin to think about for yourself, but also for your kids around you. Who are the people that count on you? And that kid that you see that's struggling, have you ever said to them, man, am I glad you're here. I was counting on you today to do da 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 da. What a great feeling that is. And what a great moment of connection. Questions so far about either one of those? About creating community or sense of hope? Okay, this is going to get a little less comfortable now. I want to talk about perseverance. And I say it's going to get uncomfortable because I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Because I think that most of us think of perseverance as being able to kind of push through something that's difficult, right? Not a problem. Except that we are very, I believe unintentionally, growing and raising a generation of children who have never been allowed to fail. We have bubble wrapped them, and we have snow plowed in front of them, and we have hovered around them to the place where the first time they make a mistake, a small mistake, it's not even that they fail, they just make a mistake, they fall apart. And I'm talking like suicidal over they missed a few questions on a test. And I'm saying, baby, it's a test. You're going to have hundreds of these in your life. Yeah, my parents are going to kill me. For what? And they have placed so much pressure on themselves to achieve some standard that they believe that has been placed upon them, that probably hasn't, but it's what they hear. And I will tell you as a boss, how many young folks, and I'm not picking on young folks because some of them are a little older, but primarily in those 20s, that this is one of their first jobs, and they make a mistake at work, or they feel like they've let me down. Holy cow. I mean, like the fall apart that happens in front of me, I go, whoa, right? Like, here's the number for EAP, like, really? And I say that because, my golly, I would rather that happen for them when they are 6. And it's about falling off their bike, or it's about missing a question on a test, or it's about turning the wrong direction and going down the wrong hallway, than it's about work, and it's about your future, and it's about your paycheck, right? I'd much rather those mistakes happen when they're this size. And you are there to help them process the feelings of it. One of the things that I realized as I processed through perseverance and resilience and all those kinds of things in my research was how difficult it is to gain the skill of knowing how to re-enter a relationship when you've made a mistake. And if any of you do that successfully, I'd love for you to come and talk to me, because I don't have that skill. I just don't, and I've tried and tried and tried and tried to learn it, and the only way to learn it is to practice. But I'm not willing to make that many mistakes. I'll just be quite honest. So tonight, right, I'm on my way here. I realize I don't have my handouts. I don't have a way to obtain them. And I go to the wrong building. So I've made 2 mistakes just on my way here tonight. And I thought, okay, how do I enter this relationship with Lori when I see her? Because there was nothing about me at that point that wanted to walk through that building and see her. Because I knew that the people at Kilbourne, where I went, called her and said, your speaker's on her way, right? She came to the wrong building. And so I knew as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh crap, I don't even want to go in there. You know, if I could just call her and tell her I don't feel well, my mom's in the hospital. Like, I came up with 1,000 excuses on my way here. And instead, I chose, now how do you say you're going to talk about resilience and you turn around and go home, right? Like, that doesn't seem right. So I thought, okay, it's time. Like, you can do this, because people are counting on you. You are counting on other people. There is a sense of hope that tomorrow is going to be different. Daggone it. If it kills me, but it's going to be different tomorrow. And I'm going to practice perseverance, and I'm going to be connected to community tonight. And instead, when I walked through that door and I'm walking up the hallway, Lori waves at me real big, and as soon as she sees me, she says, how are you? And I said, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, so I'm here. And she just hugged me, right? So I got to practice tonight. Make a mistake and still re-enter a relationship. But that's hard. And for kids, that is so difficult to do. It's hard for adults, but it's really hard for kids because they want to please you so much. And so when you see a kid make a mistake, I want your first thought to be, this kid doesn't have a clue how to re-enter this relationship with me. So I'm going to do it for them. Be their Lori in that moment, right? She didn't even know all the mistakes that I'd made today, right? But in that moment, she allowed me to just enter the relationship safely. And what a gift that is for a kid. What a gift that is for your coworker. Right? You're going to make mistakes with your coworkers. You're going to make mistakes with your spouses. And knowing how to re-enter that is really difficult. And so when you know that somebody needs to re-enter with you, help. Just help them until they've got that skill. Now, that may not have been quite as comfortable. Questions, thoughts, comments about that? Anybody willing to admit to being a snowplow parent? Now that I've just told you not to do that? Anybody willing to admit they know one? Yeah, I'm asking for a friend, right? Yeah. I know lots of them, and I'm going to guess all of you do too. right? That just make sure their kid never experiences discomfort. They will go before them and clear it all out and make sure it's all smooth. They've arranged every schedule. They've made sure that everything is in place. They have nearly killed themselves making sure that this kid just kind of lackadaisically walks through their world. And all of a sudden that kid hits college and you're not there. And then what? Drink. Hang out with friends. Find people that'll accept me, right? Because now I don't know how. And so I think for me, the key, and I said, and I meant it, I believe it's unintentional. I really do. I believe that snowplow parents are doing things with good intention. They want things to be okay for their kids. They don't want their kids to be crushed. And I get that. I do. I want you to think about the long term. And think about, I'm not just raising this kid today, I'm raising an adult. And that someday, I hope, I want them to be independent. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe you want them to live with you forever. That's okay. They will. But if you want them to be independent, right, is we just got to keep teaching skills. And I think that's really easy when we think about some of those really early skills, right? Like I've known tons of parents who are really good about teaching their kids to read, teaching their kids to write, teaching their kids to ride a bike, teaching their kids to tie their shoes. I've yet to see a kid go to senior prom with a pacifier, a diaper, or their shoes untied, right? Like we all teach that stuff. So well done. And teaching them how to make a mistake, allowing them to feel the discomfort of some failures, and process the emotion. You don't have to take it away, right? So the kid's feeling a big feeling. I can tell something's bothering you. What do you need? Leave me alone. Okay. You let me know when you're ready to talk. Right? What kinds of feelings are you having? Right? So, and trust me, I've seen it too. When they're 2 and they're like flat out on the floor, blah, right? You're okay with walking away then. and the big feelings, right, are going to come. All mine still come. Somewhere along the line, I had to learn how to deal with them. If I stood here and told you everything I've been through in the last 14 months, you would be like, sweetheart, you deserve to sit down and have a drink. And I'll just stand here tonight and keep working. Why? Because I learned how to process all those feelings. Right? And we have to learn that at somewhere through the path. You all did. Because not a one of you, I hope, got hungry today at lunch and had a temper tantrum. Did anybody do that? Good. That's good. But see, you did that when you were 3. You got hungry, you threw a temper tantrum because you had big feelings that you didn't know what to do with. You bit people. I hope you didn't do that today either. Right? You learned at some point how to process those big feelings. And I challenge that it was not through rugged individualism. It was because somebody cared about you. Sometimes folks get a little bit challenged to think about some of this. So I'm going to ask you to just kind of do some thought process with me. I want you to think about some famous people that we all may know who have been pretty open about the adversity that they've faced in their life, and yet they're doing pretty darn well. Right? Popcorn some of those names out to me. Who comes to your mind?
Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J.
Oprah.
Oprah.
The Pope.
The Pope. Who else? Now deceased, I get, but Martin Luther King? Rosa Parks? Anybody else come to mind now? This would be where you talk. Thomas Edison, is that what you said? Yeah, Thomas Edison. What else?
FDR.
Who? FDR? Yeah. Yeah. Christopher Reeve comes to my mind. Who else?
Jeff Okuda,
Who?
the Ohio State Buckeye,
Yeah.
that letter to his mom.
Yeah, there you go.
Katie Couric.
Katie Couric. Yeah.
Luke Gehrig.
Luke Gehrig. Nice. Yeah, the Ice Bucket Challenge guy. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. There's hundreds of them, thousands of them, right?
They don't have to be a celebrity. We know them in our own lives.
There you go. That's my next question, right? So those are just the famous people that we know. Do you think they all got there through rugged individualism? Think Christopher Reeves did what he did just because he was tough? The number of people that surrounded him and helped, not just physically, but emotionally, provided adaptive things for him to still be mobile. Right? Provided support, sat with him. His family talked about that a lot. Right? Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. did what he did by himself? Man, he was surrounded by people who kept him believing that something could be different. It wasn't just his dream. He was the one that talked, and it wasn't just his dream. Ellen DeGeneres will gladly talk about all the people who have helped her be who she is today. Not just famous, but who she is. Right? Yeah. So those are just the famous folks. Yes, now I'm going to push you a little differently. I want you to think about people in your own life who have faced incredible adversity and yet are doing pretty darn well. I don't need details. Just give me a first name. Just popcorn out a first name. Mom. None of you know anybody. You can do this. Who?
Diane.
Uh-huh.
Mary.
Mm-hmm.
David, Andy. Like Susan.
Nice. If I sat down across from any one of those people, would they tell me that they got to where they are just because they're just flat out tough and they did it all themselves? Probably not. Probably not. So now I'm going to push you a little further. And I want you to, either in your head, you can write it down if you want to, I want you to think about who were your resilience builders. Who helped you be the resilient person that you are today? And I would like for you to come up with at least 2 names, either in your head or actually write them down. And I would like for you to truly think about those people. Who were those people that built resilience in you, built a sense of hope, helped you learn perseverance, gave you connection, offered you moments of success, offered you the ability to calm yourself down and self-regulate? Who were those people? And you will not have to say them out loud. And not to me anyway, and not on tape. But I want you to think about who those people were. Now I'm going to push you way out of your comfort zone. And I'm going to ask you to just turn to somebody around you and share one memory of one of those 2 people. One memory of something that they did, said, acted, showed you, whatever it was that helped you learn resilience. Share one memory with somebody near you. And I want you to do that in a minute and a half. Go. something to set everybody up. No, so I'm just gonna share mine.
I'm gonna be resilient. Right, that's the hardest part. I can say one dad and both her parents and what
There you go.
If you want to share one,
God, you say no. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Thanks for listening. That's fine.
Do you have kids here?
Yes,
How old?
14 to 9.
Bless your heart. Keep
We're
building.
still alive.
Good. And you still have hair. You're doing well. Let's wrap up our conversation in about 30 seconds. I will tell you, in trainings that I do now, I like to try to find a reason to do that activity. It is as much for me as it is for you, because what happens in the audience when I do that is that I look out and all of you are now happier. Okay? Because you've had all these wonderful thoughts and memories about people that you really looked up to, you cared about, you were connected to in some way, shape, or form, and you've thought about something that they taught you. You've thought about something, you've thought about something that they did that you wanted to emulate at one point in your life in some way. Right? Now, there's always tears in the room, and that's fine. I assume those are tears of, I miss them, right? What I ask is that how do we turn those tears, how do we turn those happy memories into the recognition, and this one's a hard one for me to swallow, is that we are now that generation. Right? So long story short, and no need for detail, but in my family, I'm about to be the oldest generation. And for those of you who have done it, my hat's off to you, because it's overwhelming as hell to me. Okay, sorry, that's on tape. But sorry, I need to clean that up. That is really overwhelming to me. And so for those of you who have done it, man, come and talk to me, because I haven't figured it out yet, right? Like, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But that means that we're called to kind of start to pass those things on. Are we living in a way that somebody's looking up to us the way that we looked up to somebody else? Are we connecting with them in the same way that that person connected to you that you talked about? Are we sharing our successes and our mistakes the same way that some of those folks did with us? Right? Are we offering that same amount of support, that same amount of hope that that person gave to us? And I don't know who those people were for you, right? That may have been a family member, it may have been a coach, it may have been a teacher, it may have been a police officer that gave you your first ticket. I don't know. It may have been a college person, it may have been somebody that you work with now, it may be your spouse, it may have been a parent. I don't know who it was. What I know is that for many of you, there is at least one, and likely more, adults that connected to you and showed you something different. And I challenge us to start to pass that on, right? To start to pass that on. So one of the things that Lori promised you, and I did as well at the beginning of this conversation, is that I would give you some things you could do as you walked out of here, tomorrow, next week, wherever it is. And so I'll throw out a couple, and then I want you to start to kind of think of some, and more will come in the email for those of you who sign up for it. That's fine. But I think about things like, how can you carve out even 10 minutes that is true connection time with that kid, with that person, with that spouse, with that neighbor, whoever that is that you'd like to connect with to build resilience in. How can you carve even 10 minutes that's not attached to a screen, unless that's your only way to connect to them? Right? So like right now, and I say that because like right now in my family, we have, one of my family members is in Guam in the service. And hooray technology, right? He still calls his grandma once a week on the phone, right? With the video. And because of that, that's the only way that they can communicate, because it's free and they can see each other, right? And every week, like clockwork, he makes that phone call just to connect to her. And I said, so how do you rearrange your schedule around that? She said, there isn't anything that I need to do that's more important than that phone call. That's right. That. Right? There's nothing that I need to do that's more important than that 10 minutes. That's how much you value that relationship. So can you carve those 10 minutes? Even if you can't do that every day, and I'm not asking you to do it every day, I'm not asking you to do it every week, but in between times that you can, how can you let them know that it's going to get better, that somebody's counting on them, right? That there's a sense of hope, that you see good in them. So can you send them, I know it's going to sound contradictory, can you send them a text? Right? Can you send them a note in the mail? Can you stick a Post-it note in their lunchbox? Because I don't know who these people are to you. They may be your children, right? Even if they're in your classroom, right? Can you pop a Post-it note inside their desk for them to find? Can you share a special handshake with them in between times, right? If you just see them for a moment, you don't have the full 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes will come at the end of the day, but you see them in the hall now. Can you share a special handshake? Can you tell them something, whether that's via text, via email, via phone call, via a note, whatever that is, tell them something specific about them that you enjoy, something they're good at, some way that they have made the world a better place. We didn't talk a lot about self-regulation, but it's one of the things it's a huge skill around resilience, and it's one of the things that I think can be really fun to teach. And it's about just teaching people how to manage emotion in a stressful moment, right? How can they self-regulate? Now, I'm not going to make you share yours, but I will share mine. So what I said to her was, my resilience builder was, one of them was my grandmother. And I remember very clearly a day, and I was maybe in 4th grade, I came home from school and a friend of mine and I had had a little tiff. Right? Now, obviously it wasn't earth-shattering. I was in 4th grade. Now I know it wasn't earth-shattering. At the moment it seemed earth-shattering, right? And I came home and I was all wigged out. I was mad, I was tearful, I was frustrated, I was slamming my book bag down and right? And she just looked right at me and she very calmly said, you need to go outside and swing on that swing set until you've got your little tushy calmed down, and then you may come in here and talk to me. Fine, right? And I went out and I swung on that swing set. I know it was for a good half hour, right? And I was swinging. Now, I'm going to age myself a little bit. It was back in those days when we had the metal ones that like came out of the ground a little bit. Yeah. And I was swinging just big enough to make that puppy pop up just a little bit. You know, I mean, like I was mad. And over time, you know, that started to kind of slow down a little bit, and I got myself a little bit better, and I walked in the house, and the first thing that my grandmother did was greet me with a hug and a cookie. Now, to this day, when I get mad, I still like to go swing, but I want the cookie at the end, right? But what she did was welcomed me back into relationship, right? But in that moment, unbeknownst to me as a 4th grader, but now I get it, right, is what she was doing was teaching me a self-regulation skill. Go away from people, swing, 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 move, get it out of your system. And she said the key words, and then come in and we'll talk. Now connect, right? Now connect with somebody talk with somebody about what those big emotions are, what those big feelings are, make a plan, and my grandmother was great for that. I gotta tell you, it took me like 6 years to learn all kinds of brain science and all kinds of craziness about trauma that I go around and tell people about all the time. My grandmother did that stuff with a 7th grade education. And I'm like, how did she get to be so dang smart? Right? Because it took me 2 degrees and 6 years to learn all that crap. But it's amazing when I think back and I think, okay, so how do I repeat that stuff? Right? How do you let kids color and get it out? How do you let them take deep breaths? How do you let them listen to loud music to calm down? But don't just send them away, because really what we're saying then is rugged individualism, right? Go calm yourself down and present, right? Like pull yourself together. Here was the problem. My parents used to say that to me a lot too. You know, you need to watch your mouth, little missy. Go calm yourself down in your bedroom and think about what you've done, and we'll The problem was they never told me what I was supposed to think about or do in my bedroom, right? So most of what I did was just made myself madder. Because I'd be in there and then I'd be like, this isn't fair, and now there's, right? Like, and I just get madder and madder and madder. And they never really taught me what to do to calm myself down. And so I had to learn that stuff as an adult, because I found out as an adult in the workplace that it's really not okay for you to cuss at people. It's not okay to yell at people. It's not okay to hit people. It's not okay to bite. Like, I learned all kinds of things that were just not okay anymore. But I didn't have any other skills. And so I had to have people teach me that as an adult. So when you teach people how to calm themselves down, to get management over their bodies in relationship, and then you don't just go away, that's a beautiful thing. Okay, so intentionally teach self-regulation. Intentionally teach self-regulation. One of the other big ones for me is always about finding a way, if what we're seeing is people around us who are really isolated, is how can we connect? So one of the I very intentionally moved into a neighborhood in Columbus. I sought out this neighborhood, sought out a house in this neighborhood, very intentionally, because it's incredibly diverse. And on my street, man, there's tons of kids of all different ages. And there's a piece of that feels very much like where I grew up. Now, we weren't diverse at all, but there was kids everywhere. And the best sound all summer is kid noise, right? Like when you're sitting on your porch and you're hearing kids, right, and that little scream that they get, or they're riding their bikes, and even if you hear the crash, like you hear them get back up and you hear them ride again, and you hear the skateboards and you hear the footballs and all that kind of, like, I love that noise. I love kid noise. And I walk my dog every day, and there is a little family that has, I think, 4 kids, and one of them is about 5 and one of them is about 7-ish, and they're always outside at the end of the day when I walk my dog. And they are determined to pet my dog, who hates people. Hates people. She's not mean, she's scared, right? Like, she's real skittish, and she just hides and she tries to get away. She just does not like people. And so from the very get-go, his name is Josiah. In the very beginning, Josiah would come out and he would say, can I pet your dog? Which I loved that he would ask, right? And I said, thank you for asking. I said, you can try, but she's really scared and she's real timid, and so she may not let you. That's okay. And he did like all the right things, right? Like, he squatted down and he put his hand out, he tried really hard, and she wasn't having it. And I apologized and said, it's okay, but if you just keep showing up and you just keep being patient with her, maybe she'll get it. And so we just kept going day after day, and every day Josiah would be out there, he'd squat, and he's, hi Priscilla, she's deaf, but it doesn't matter. Hi Priscilla, and he would try so hard to pet her, and she just was not having any part of it. And about 2 weeks in, his sister came out with him, and he wanted to introduce me to his sister, and he did. And so I met her, and the next thing I know, I hear him saying to her, now her name is Priscilla, and she's deaf, and she's real timid, so you just have to be patient. I thought, bless your heart, right? Like, he heard it all, and he just repeated it. And so we just kept doing it. And then the sister, right? So now they're both sitting on the ground trying to get Priscilla to come. She's still not having it. 7 weeks went by every day. Folks, I don't know if you've counted. That's like 49 days. 49 days these 2 kids sat down on that street and tried to pet my dog. And she finally went over like this to Josiah's hand and sniffed it, and he held really still, and she still jumped. The next thing I know, he jumps up and goes flying in his house. And from his house, I hear, "Mom, I did it! She let me pet her!" And I was like, well, she didn't, but okay, right? Like, he was so excited, right? And what I heard from inside the house was Mom say, "Great, get outside." And I thought, no, you missed the moment, right? You missed the moment. And so he came back outside, and I was like, "Buddy, give me 5, Sheila," right? Like, we connected. Does that make any sense? Finding ways to connect intentionally. Now, am I going to go like provide Christmas dinner for Josiah and his sister? No. I don't need to provide clothes for them. I don't need to take care of them. I don't need to pay to send them to college, although they probably like that. But I don't need to do a whole lot. I don't need to give money and all of that stuff. I need to connect in 4 minutes over a dog every day. Does that speak to you? Yeah.
One of the things that I have always said, Lori and I have done a lot of presentations, and one of the things recently I've thought about is parents need to tell their children stories. We talk about having that time to share, but not the stories of I walked, 5 miles out in the snow to school, but the other stories about, who they dated in high school, what they did, how their parents responded to them. Maybe you had a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle that was an alcoholic. Those stories don't get shared very often.
No, they don't.
And even in my own family, my father shared a lot of stories with me and my brother, but my brother doesn't seem to be doing that with my nephews. So when I have them with me, I was like, "Did your father tell you the time when he, or when we," and they were like, "No, Aunt Kathy, he didn't tell us that story." So
Yeah.
I try to tell that, and my nephews are like 25 and 18 now, but they need to hear those stories.
Yeah.
So they remember that. And my aunts and uncles would tell me stories about, on my mom's side of the family, about things they did when they were kids, and funny stories. And I
Yeah.
think because we've gotten so busy,
Yeah.
people aren't telling their kids those stories or their grandkids those stories.
I agree. I think a lot of what we do anymore is we have logistical transactions, right? So I'm going to pick you up at 3:30 today, and you need to be here, and then you're going to go to so-and-so's house, and I've got to work until, and we just have logistical transactions, right? And there is so much power in story, not just for connection, but to me, what I heard in all of that was about family legacy, right? And that I am a part of something bigger.
Yes.
Right.
My personal trainer, he likes to smoke cigars, and his daughter's like 7, and so he has his little place where he smokes his cigars, but somehow he got on this thing of telling his daughter and her friends cigar stories. And he just makes up these stories. They're not anything of realistic at all, but he'll just come up with a story, and when he comes home, his daughter's like, "Daddy, tell us a cigar story." So he'll act like he's lighting his cigar, and he creates this story, like, she'll
Fun.
remember that.
Fun.
Forever, but
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nice. What questions, thoughts, comments?
Is there a book on self-regulation?
Several. Actually, there is, what are some of my favorites? That's what I'm struggling with.
To your teenagers.
Yeah, one of them that comes to mind is,
You can email it.
I can. You're right.
Just so that side, the question was, what books are there out there on self-regulation?
On self-regulation.
In case you didn't know. And trying to-
Dances, ditties, and something. Yes, you're right. I will email it. That's a great answer. Beautiful. Yes, there are some great books. There are some great books for teachers, and then there are some other books for parents and things that you can do. And a lot of it is really what I want most folks to think about when we think about teaching self-regulation is really about teaching kids how their body feels when they're feeling those big things. And then the second piece of that is pay attention to what your kids do when they're really enjoying themselves and what they're doing when they're really cranked off. And typically those two things have something in common, and that tends to be the way the kid regulates. Okay, so in the spirit of conversation, I'll just share a kind of an example of it. Is typically if we have a kid who is a pretty big act-outer when they're mad, right? Like they'll hit things, or they'll scream really loud, or they'll flee. Those kind of, like, they're really big when they're mad about something. Those tend to be kids that when they're doing something that they enjoy, they're doing things that are fairly fast-paced. So maybe they're soccer players, maybe they are intense video game players, maybe they are basketball players, they're skateboarding, they are playing drums, they are doing intense, fast-paced kinds of things. What that says to us in teaching them self-regulation is they need to do something with their body that is intentionally fast-paced and intense. So I may say to that kid, why don't you go take a run around the house? Right? Because if I tell that kid to just take some deep breaths and listen to some calming music, they're going to claw my eyes out, right? Like, that's not going to work for them. It may be that I need to help that kid know what they can tear up, right? So can they shred paper for me? Right? Can I give them an intense kind of stress ball? Can I teach them progressive muscle relaxation, right? So that their muscles are really intense, because they can do that anywhere, right? Can I teach them things like pushing against their hands as hard as they can and then pulling as hard as they can? Because what we want to do is bring intensity to the core of the body and bring fast pace. So fast music, any kind of fast movement, any kind of intensity with the body is going to be regulating for them. Okay, does that kind of make some sense? That seemed to resonate with you a little bit. On the flip side of that, if you've got a kid who, when they're really enjoying themselves, likes to kind of curl with a blanket, listen to some soft music, color, do some slower paced kind of craft stuff, maybe even in sports, it could be a long distance runner, but it's a very different pace. It's much slower, way less intense. When they're mad, they're going to tend to be kids that are going to cry, go to sleep, read a book, flee and go off by themselves, kind of hunkered down, right? I'm not going to ask that kid to go run around the house, because they're going to claw my eyes out, right? So for that kid, I am going to teach them how to breathe deep. I am going to teach them how to do some meditation. I am going to teach them it's okay to color when you're really upset about something. I'm going to teach them how to write. I might teach them how to make music. I may teach them how to do figure eights across the midline of their body. I may teach them how to do some tapping exercises on some key points on their body that they control the speed and can calm the body back down. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So yes, I will email some books. That's not a problem. Other questions? Yeah.
So what if you have a kid who tries like different things, like what you mentioned, for self-regulation, and they're just not having it? Say that doesn't work, I'm not doing it.
I think that there's a part of it that the conversation then can become, or maybe needs to become, bigger than what to do, but about why. And so helping them understand kind of what's happening in their brain when they get all dysregulated, right, is that their brain is getting fed massive amounts of chemicals, of cortisol and adrenaline and all these kind of stress hormones, that their body, because of those stress hormones, goes on a different path that is really difficult to control and manage, and the not smart part of their brain takes over. And that when the not smart part of their brain takes over, they tend to get consequences, they tend to break up friendships, they tend to feel bad later, they tend to make some mistakes, those kinds of things. And that by doing some of these things, really what they're doing is calming down that kind of animal part of their brain, that mad part of their brain, and then they're able to think with their smart brain. They can avoid whatever is important to that kid. So you can avoid, if that's important, avoid consequences. You can have time with your friends differently. You may have better conversations with us. Maybe for me it was about, you tell me I could go ride my bike, I'd do anything, right? So it was about freedom. I wanted a way, right? So whatever's important to that kid, tie in how does self-regulation help them get that. So we need the why. As if you just tell me to go run around the house, I may tell you to no. Thank you for understanding what I was about to say. Other thoughts or questions?
I just had a question about moments of success in a way that what you shared about your pet.
Yeah.
That's a moment of success. But what about, not all the kids can be the top of the class or the best
That's right.
athlete. What do you do with a young person that comes to you and they say, well, Mom or Dad, I'm really not the best at this. I'm really not the best at anything.
Right.
What would be your recommendation about
Yeah. I think it's about, maybe that's true. Not all of us can be the best. What I want you to be the best at is being you, right? So what are the things that you'd really like to be able to do? Maybe not be the best at, but you'd like to be able to do a little better, or you'd like to be able to do, period. Let's focus on that. What is it that makes you unique? What is it that you'd like to learn more about, or you'd like to explore? And sometimes it's not even about doing. Because some of those kids that struggle with being the best at, it's really, that's not their skill set, is the doing. It's in what they can think about, what they can read, what video game they can play. It's what instrument they can play, how they can interpret music, what languages they know, what science experiment they can do, right? It may not be about an external thing. Sometimes it's about a skill. And kind of focusing on that. Or maybe it's even that they are really good at connecting with other people, right? And how can we get them engaged in that? But I'd really try to get them to buy into, what do you want? And then once we start to try it, it's that tiny success. Okay, so we didn't get all the way there, but do you realize that the last time we did this, you couldn't do this part, and you did it, right? You got that much of it. So what do you think we could do the next time? And it's just setting those baby steps and recognizing those baby steps to build the perseverance to keep trying. And I don't know how old of a kid you're thinking about, but right now I have a 7-year-old goddaughter who's trying to learn to play tiddlywinks. I never realized how hard tiddlywinks could be, right? But she is really frustrated because she's a very natural student. She's a very good kid, right, at home, well-behaved, never really has any trouble. Everything comes natural. Until we tried tiddlywinks. And boy, the first time she couldn't do it, she was done with that, right? And it was, let's keep trying. We got to keep practicing. Of course, we all acted like we couldn't do it either, right? And we just had to keep practicing. And she's been at this for 2 weeks. And she just came to see me over the holiday, and she said, and Carol, I have to show you, I learned how to do tiddlywinks. I said, you did? And she had to try like 7 times, 8 times before she could get it, but she finally did it. She was so excited, right? And that meant more to her than learning how to read, because it was the first thing she'd ever tried that was hard. Does that make some sense? Yeah.
That's how you get to Carnegie Hall.
Is it?
Practice.
Playing tiddlywinks?
Practice.
Oh, practice. I was like, really? I'm going to practice, aren't I? Yeah. Yes, you're right. That's exactly right.
If you have a child like that, what about affirming, listening to what they want to try things?
Yeah.
But if they do have some real natural qualities, just personal qualities, what about affirming that? Is that
Absolutely. Please affirm that. Yeah. Because those kids that are pretty naturally empathic, pretty naturally sensitive to other people, pretty natural givers, pretty naturally caring about the world is not kind to until they're adults. And that's tough. That's a tough person to be in today's world. Kids especially are not kind to empaths and sensitive people. So, yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of along a similar vein as the question that was just asked, but like you talked about resilience in the sense of like working hard to accomplish something. Like, how do you get them to teach a child, let's say my child for instance, how you like to put that effort in. Like, I feel like it's very easy, especially if a kid is naturally good at lots of things, like you were describing, to when they find something that's hard, put it away and go back to the things that they're good at. How do you teach them to be resilient in a way that I'm going to keep doing this until I get better at it?
Yep. I think it's a couple of things, and the first one that comes to my brain is model it, right? So, I bet I'm supposed to repeat that for the tape, aren't I?
Model it?
No, the question.
Oh, if you could, yeah.
Okay, sure. So thinking about kind of, especially those kids who are pretty naturally gifted, right? Like my goddaughter, and all of a sudden they run into something that is difficult. How do we get them to stick with that rather than just give up and go back to the things they're good at? My first answer is model it, right? And I don't mean model it about that thing. I mean model it in your own life, that when you encounter something that's difficult, oftentimes we as adults want to hide that from kids. And I want you to talk about it, right, in the moment. Now, when they were little, we called that descriptive parenting, right? So we would say things like, so I'm going to pour the milk in the cup, and then I'm going to give it to you. Like, we would do all that stuff. But now, all of a sudden, when it's about feelings, or it's about something that I'm challenged by as an adult, all of a sudden, I don't want to talk about it, right? So it might be something like, man, today, I was trying so hard at softball practice, and I could not hit that ball where I wanted to, and so I was talking to some of the guys afterward, and I was trying to figure out how to do that. I guess I'm just going to have to keep practicing at it. And the next time you practice at it, man, I still couldn't get that. How do you deal with that? Talk about it, right? And I say that not so that kids hear that you struggle. I want kids to hear the thought process that happens when you struggle. And interestingly enough, when you do that, a few times you're going to hear your kids say those exact things when they encounter something that's difficult, right? So when my goddaughter was struggling with tiddlywinks, right, I heard her saying things that I know I've said in front of her, and that was, okay, I just have to focus. I can do this. I'm going to try one more time. And if I don't do it, then I can quit. Like, she was just saying all this stuff out loud, and I thought, I know exactly where she got all that. Right, that's exactly what I say when I can't do something. And the last time that she heard me do it, all I was trying to do was trim a candle, and it was not going well, right? And so I just kept saying out loud, she was sitting right there watching me, and I was saying, whew, okay, this is not going well. I just need to put this down and take a breath for a minute. Whew. And she took a breath with me, and we laughed, and I said, okay, just one more try, and if I can't get it, I'm going to quit. And all of a sudden, she repeated those very words. I didn't think anything about it. I didn't think I was magically modeling for her I was just cutting a candle. But if I can talk through those things, they start to get the thought process. Does that piece at least make sense? And then it's about what I really want to have folks avoid is pushing kids to do, right? So say, now come on, now quit. You can do this, right? You've got to stick with, you have to. No, they don't. They really don't. And the more you push, the less they want. Right? And I say that because it's human nature. And I don't know if I hope you'll be able to get this on tape, but it's human nature. I just want you to put your hand up like this and do whatever's natural, okay? Did you see that? The initial reaction that she had was to resist, and then she gave in. Right? So the natural reaction for every human being is to resist when they're pushed. And then they'll either cave or they'll keep fighting you as hard as they possibly can. So why push? Right? Then all we do is get into a tug of war. So I just back off, say, wow, it looks like that's hard. Huh. So when you encounter something that's hard, what do you do? Because I remember when you were learning how to tie your shoes and it was really difficult for you. But you wearing tied shoes today. And I walk away. Right? Moments of conversation. It's not a plow through it. Does that make some sense too? Okay? So we got to resist that urge to just push and push and push and push and push, because people will resist. I don't know where all that went. Other thoughts? I told Lori I had no idea how we'd make it to 8, but we did it. I was figuring we'd be done by 7:30 for sure. So I just want to say, you all could have been anywhere tonight. You could have been on Facebook, you could have been on social media, and you could have been sleeping. And you chose to be here. And what that tells me is that you have investment in people around you and the world being better. And those are the kind of people that I want to create community with and I want to hang out with. So I don't know how far around that paper made it. If it didn't, we'll stop it somewhere. There it is. If you did not get your email on it, but you want your email on it for some follow-up, and it will be a one-time email. It will not be a lot, and I will not sell your email. I promise. I'm not that kind of a business. But if you want one follow-up email from me with some resources, some last-minute thoughts, some reminders of things that we talked about, put your email on there, and I will do that within 2 weeks. Beyond that, from here, step out tomorrow and see who can you provide a sense of hope for, a sense of community, who can you help build perseverance, who can you help build self-regulation, and how can you give people a connection to the community that's around them. That's for you as well as for everybody around you. So thank you for your attention. I know Lori's looking like she wants to say something, so come on up.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So she does not disappoint, ever. She doesn't disappoint. I do have one question, though. How many of you have kids that are in elementary school? Raise your hands. Okay, middle school, high school. Okay, all right, very good. I needed that for our next presentation that we're going to do,
Gotcha.
that we're punting now on. So that will be at Kilbourne High School. I love the things you said. I must admit, though, I do not know what tiddlywinks are.
Well, we will learn.
I had
Let's
no
practice.
idea. I'm thinking, I thought that was just a joke. Like, I thought it was like a fake game. So
it's a
there
real
really
game.
is a game. I had
It's a
no
real
idea.
game.
You know those little froggy things that you flip the frogs up into? You know, you press on the frog and the frog like hops up into
Yeah.
fancy pants.
Ants in the pants. That's
Kinda like that.
Okay, okay, all right.
These are little flat chips, and you
Okay.
snap them
I
and
was
they
outside
bounce.
playing outside. That's why I have no finger dexterity, no fine motor skills.
Well, we'll practice
We
tiddlywinks.
need to. And I will say, too, the one thing I did with my niece and nephews is when we would play games, I wouldn't always let them win.
That's
I'd beat
right.
them because they needed to learn how to lose.
And they need to learn how to win.
They do, and they need to learn how to win. And when
Yep.
they did beat me on games, they loved it. It was like the greatest thing ever. But now we don't play games because they beat me all the time. So anyhow, and they're full grown. But I really, again, like Carol said, you could have been anywhere tonight, and you made the choice to be here. So you're invested. Right now, we have to have hope, and we have to have belief. And we have to believe in one another that we can get our kids on the right track and get that pendulum to swing back where we really make the connections and the connections that count. So I very much appreciate you being here. One last round of applause for Carol. She's fantastic. I did circulate a CEU sheet. I apologize, I forgot to print that out today. It was about 3 days back to school, like slap you upside the head. So there is a CEU sheet. If you need it, I'll put up there by the, or you can sign it. We'll just put it on the table and sign it if you need the CEU credit. And then the email sheet, we've got that.
That's what I'm holding up.
Okay, that's what is the email sheet, okay.
there somewhere.
And then, thank you, CEUs are right here. And the last thing I do want to ask you, if you could take some time, please, to fill out the evaluation, because we do use that and we share that with our presenters so they know that they're awesome. No, we give them the comments and everything. So please take time to fill that out.
Please.
Any questions, feel free to, we'll be here. So thanks
Absolutely.
again and have a great evening.